As we enter into Parashat ki-Tisa, Parashat of Chet it's very hard not to feel the tears, not to feel what we lost. And so that's why we sing Al Eila Ani Bochia, that my tears are for the things that I've lost. Al Eila Ani Bochia, Ani Bochia. Be'ezrat Hashem, the shiur should be the Refuat Morenu V'Rabbeinu, Harav Menachem Yoshua ben Leah Rezo, V'Achola Shlomit Bat Chaya, Betוך Kol Shar Cholei Israel. I think if there's one issue that we all have to deal with, sometimes as parents, sometimes as teachers, sometimes as a friend of another person, is the need for punishment. I know for me personally, teaching 3 years ago, a class in 11th grade, I constantly had to ask myself, when's the right time to punish? And what's the right punishment to give to a certain act that every student has done? When we enter in to Parashat ki-Tisa, it's first important to see how the Parsha itself screams out this problem. If we think about Sefer Shmot in a whole, we'll see that the Parashot Shmot and Va'era are together. Shmot and Va'era are about the Galut. And then we have the second team. Bo and Bishalach together are about redemption from Mitzrayim. And then we have Yitro and Mishpatim together, the Parshot of Matan Torah, the Parshot of understanding Hashem giving the Torah down to the world. Truma Tetzaveh, the Tzivui, the commandment about building the Mishkan. And Vayakel Pikudei at the end, the action of building the Mishkan. There's only one Parsha in all of Sefer Shmot that stands alone. ki-Tisa. The Parsha where everything changed. The Parsha where, as we said in the Niggin before the Shir, how can we understand, how can we contemplate this understanding that a nation under Har Sinai, like the Midrash says, it was a chuppah, that the Kala at the chuppah basically spits in the husband's face. So Chet HaEgel is where we stand in front of Hashem and we shut the door. And in relation to ki-Tisa, it stands in between the idea of the Mishkan. The Mishkan surrounds Chet HaEgel. And I think that we have to ask ourselves, what is the relation between the Mishkan and Chet HaEgel? We know that there's many times that God gives punishments to the world. But what's incredible about God's punishments is it's never an angry reaction. It's not a punishment that you did something wrong, I'm upset with you, here I'm gonna fight back at you. Hashem is an educator, and when he sees something go wrong, he asks himself, what is going wrong? And the punishment comes to reveal what was it that made the true big mistake. And through the Sefat Emet and the Ramban, I want to understand what is it in the Mishkan that changes the sin in Chet. So says the Sefat Emet, in the year 1884, לפי שיטת רש"י, שהמשכן נצטוו לעשות אחר החטא. There's a machloket between Rashi and the Ramban. Was the Mishkan ideal, or was the Mishkan a reaction to the sin at Maman Har Sinai? The Shita of Rashi is that the Mishkan was a reaction to the sin. So the Sefat Emet tries to think, what was it about the Mishkan that was a reaction to what went wrong in Chet. So he says, כנראה כי קודם החטא לא היו נפרדים. רק אחר כך, שהיה קצת פירוד, היה העצה על ידי המשכן וכליו. He says if we think about Maman Har Sinai, all of Am Yisrael stand together. There's no separations. Rav Re'em always teaches that many of us think that Moshe was standing on top of the mountain when Hashem gave us the Torah. But if we look in the Psukim, we'll see that Moshe is down with Am Yisrael. When God reveals himself, when he comes down to the nation, there's no separations. There's no divisions. There's no this kind of person and that kind of person. There's one. Am echad, belev echad. But if we think about the Mishkan, what is the Mishkan saying? From beginning until the end, the Mishkan is all about divisions. This is Ezrat Nashim. This is the Azara. This is the Eichal. This is Kodesh Kodashim. And it will be exactly here. And exactly in this way. And the Kohen has this job. And the Levi has this job. And the Israel has this job. It's all about divisions. So the Mishkan is saying, in reaction to the sin, is that when we stood on Har Sinai, we lost the idea of divisions. So we thought we could do whatever we want. We could build an egel, we could break through. There's no need for slow process. There's no need to build things. I'll do whatever I want. God says, Mishkan. The Mishkan is a punishment to come and say, I understand that the root of your sin was that you didn't totally understand the need of different areas, of building slowly. So the Mishkan says it's not going to happen immediately. And so the Sefat Emet says that the reaction by Mishkan for the sin of the Egel was the need to create divisions. But I think if we look in the Ramban, is an introduction to Parashat Truma. He says the following sentence. The Ramban says, V'sod ha-Mishkan. What was the secret of the Mishkan? Hu sheyihyeh ha-kavod asher shachan al har Sinai shochen alav benistar. the Ramban says that what was the difference between Ma'amad Har Sinai and the Mishkan is that Ma'amad Har Sinai was galui, was open, was out to everyone. Everyone saw it. Whereas the revelation in the Mishkan was nistar. The revelation in the Mishkan, in the Kodesh Kodashim, wasn't seen, wasn't heard, and wasn't felt all the time. Hashem says to Am Yisrael, you have to understand there are two different ways for Hashem to reveal himself. There's one is that's galui, but there's one that's nistar. And true, the Ramban does not think that the Mishkan was a reaction to the sin. But ideally, the Ramban is saying is that the ideal isn't that God every moment says, I'm God, I'm here. It's that God doesn't say to you, I'm here. It's that he lets you find it on your own. The Ramban is saying that we sometimes think if someone doesn't say to you, I'm here, then it means he doesn't love me. He says the opposite. The true love is that he lets you look, he lets you seek, he lets you find. And I think if we think about these two ideas, in that the Mishkan reacts to the idea of Chet HaEgel. The Sefat Emet says that the idea of the Mishkan in relation to Chet HaEgel was the need for divisions, was the need to say that there's a slow process to reach the goal. And the Ramban says that the idea of the Mishkan is that it leaves a place for you. Is that if God holds himself back, pulls himself back, locks himself inside Kodesh Kodashim, that is true Ahava. And I think that when we opened this year, we said that punishments are something that we try to run away from. But sometimes a punishment is not a bad reaction. It shows that you really care. It shows that you really understand. And I just want to finish with one short idea of the Kotzker Rebbe. The Kotzker Rebbe says that when Adam HaRishon sinned, his punishment was horrific. Hashem says to Adam HaRishon, you used to have it easy, now you're going to have to plow and you're going to have to sweat and you're going to have to bleed. It's going to be a really difficult life. And to the woman he says, you're going to have childbirth pain. Such a tremendous punishment. Such a painful punishment. And to the snake who initiates the idea of sin, what does God say to the Nachash? You'll lose your legs and you'll eat dust. Says the Kotzker, what kind of punishment is that? There's dust everywhere in the world. That's not a punishment. He says that there's two different ways for God to react to your sin. He says the biggest punishment is the punishment to the Nachash. He says to Nachash, your sin was so bad, I'll give you everything. But I don't want to ever see you, talk to you, hear you. So he gives him dust and he says to him, eat whatever you want, but don't ever come to me. But to Adam and Chava he says, I understand that your sin was from lack of connection between us. And my punishment is to create a new relationship, to build a stronger relationship. And I think that if we think in our own personal lives, we always have to stand in front of this difficulty of the people we love the most, saying to my son, no, you can't do this, you can't be here. But I love you so much, I don't want to say that. But the true punishment is to look deep into the people that you love and see what is missing in their lives and bring a reaction that could uplift them and help them become closer to themselves and to you. And so my bracha is that when we enter into the Parashat of ki-Tisa and we see the tremendous loss, we see the tremendous difficulty that Am Yisrael went through, not to only see the al-eila ani bochia of the sin, but to truly try and see through ki-Tisa how God stays our Father and how He's showing us a new way to love us and care for us, sometimes through reactions that at the beginning seem difficult, but in the depth show the biggest love and understanding of the people that you care for. Shabbat Shalom.